What's going on, everyone? I am here again with one of my best friends, Cody Scott. As you know, as we mentioned, me and Cody, we went through recon school together. We were first recon together, and just recently, we signed up. We did a race together. I remember the night before the race. We were sitting around, me, you, and both of our wives, just hanging out, talking. And Cody, you said something that really struck a chord with me that I really wanted to circle back, and I thought it would provide a lot of value here. And you shared a story about us over in Iraq, and it was right when the elections were happening, and I'm sure you remember that moment in time. If you could kind of walk people through just where we were, what we were doing, and then your aha that you had at the end of all of that.
Yeah, for sure. It was February of 2005, or actually February timeframe 2005, and it was the first elections in Iraq after the invasion, and we were tasked with working with a ODA team, or Army SF Green Beret team, to do quick react in case there was any shenanigans at the polling places there in Najaf, where we were at. And during that time frame, we had gone over to the ODA team's compound, and it was a far cry from the way that we were living, on the fob, in tents, like 12 of us packed into a tent, and two tents to the platoon of like 24 guys. And these guys had their own rooms, they had Xboxes or whatever, some sort of gaming console. I mean, they had the life.
Dude, I remember.
And this was towards.
No, dude, I'm sorry, cut you. I remember they had a cake I remember walking into whatever kitchen that
was. They had a cake for some reason. They got a cake from out in town.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how that's why that resonated with me, but for whatever reason, they're in this huge house with a cake, and I was like, "Can I have a cake?"
I almost mentioned the cake.
Yeah. Oh, dude, they had all this stuff. So they
for whatever reason, they had a fantastic cake.
It was this amazing scenario. To your point, so
yeah,
and
so I mean, these guys had it made, and it was towards the end of my enlistment, and I was still trying to figure out what I was going to do with myself, and stay in, get out, cross deck, to another service, who knows, and I started talking to one of their guys and asking him about cross decking is what they call when you go from one service to the other, and I was interested in potentially trying to cross deck and go to SF and go through their courses and stuff, and get into one of their teams, just because of they had this great setup, and where I was sitting were well taken care of. Something that the
awesome.
Marine recon community during that time period had not really figured out as far as accommodations and whatnot. We were living fairly Spartan. Sleeping on a cot for 9 months only works when you're 21. So your back can't take it much longer than that. But during the course of the conversation with this team member, he's accommodating my questions and telling me about what's going on. And he said, "Well, look, man, I got to be honest with you. If you're looking for a better deal, in the service and the special operations community, you should look at CCT." And I was familiar with CCT because I went to jump school with some of those guys, and they had it made, completely. And for those that aren't familiar, CCT are combat air controllers from the Air Force, and they're attached to SF teams and Navy SEAL teams and so forth. They do all the same stuff with all those guys and become an integrated part of the team, but they are required to call Air Force, close air support and whatnot. So when he said that, though, it really kind of made a light bulb go off to me that, as great of a difference it is between our lifestyle and these guys' lifestyle, they still are looking at the CCT guys saying, "Look at how good they've got it over there." And and then, where's the end of it? Who are the CCTs guys? Who are they what grass are they looking at to see how much greener it is? It's just constant, looking over the fence to see, you know, where the grass is greener and trying to get over there, being unhappy with where you're at. And, and that was kind of a pivotal moment, for me, realizing that I needed to just go ahead and separate and move on and do something else, because you were getting stuck into that, grass is always greener loop, wasn't productive.
Well, that's man, it really resonated with me because it's a common thing that pops up. I mean, I hear it all the time. People reference how much greener the grass is elsewhere. I'm not really happy here, and maybe it's over there. And I think a lot of veterans. Yeah, I was talking to a former police officer just recently, and he had gotten out, being a police officer, had transitioned into another role, and just talking to him, just trying to understand his position. A lot of it stemmed from comparing to what his life used to be and how it wasn't the same as now, or looking at what he's currently at and comparing it to the other thing. In either case, it was everything except for where he was the
Yeah.
greener pasture. And what do you think that does to people having that mindset? Even in the civilian world, constantly having
Oh,
that
well,
grass is greener over there.
well, one of the biggest struggles I think the veteran community has today is looking backwards at the grass that they had been in, and thinking back, well, I used to do all this and now I'm just doing this, and really not being happy with where they're at because of how it, in their mind, pales in comparison to what they did previously. Looking forward or backward or wherever, and not appreciating where you're at now, what you're doing now, and focusing on making yourself better in the moment, in the situation that you're in currently, is going to always have a negative impact. You need to look inward, rather than outward, for happiness. And if you're constantly living in the past because of what you did in the military, and unsatisfied with your life as a civilian, because you feel like it pales in comparison, or if you're in the military and you're constantly looking at somewhere else that, thinking the grass is always greener, it's just a negative mindset, and it
Totally.
really it degrades your morale on a day-to-day basis. It affects your relationships and your work productivity. It alienates you from other people. It's really unproductive. And
I think
appreciate
about
what
that
you did
losing.
previous.
No, just if you think about too, I just want to pause right there too, because I think about you, recon marine, uh, jump, dive. I mean, you've been through schools that people would dream to go to, just one of them, and you've been to a ton. And if you, I mean, what I'm thinking about, like, and I do this knowing that you've got a great life and you've got a ton of happiness, and I
Right.
make this comparison. But like, if you look at it, so imagine somebody looking at this right now, that what would actually compare to being a jump dive, recon marine, decorated, purple heart, like, all the things that you have going right now.
Right.
How could anything ever compare to that? Like, that's just a losing battle. Like, that just would never happen, because there's nothing that's going to compare to that today. And I think a big part of it's honoring
Yeah.
what was there, and doing so by moving forward into finding something right now.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough to look back and say, you're like, oh man, I used to do, some pretty interesting stuff, and then, you know, you're running kids around to practice in school or whatever, and and if you think, well, this isn't that important, if you start getting down on it, it really is going to create a negative, a lot of negativity in yourself, and that's going to bleed over to your family life and professional life. Like, absolutely appreciate what you did, but recognize that, you've moved on from that chapter of your life, and just because you're doing something else now doesn't, like, depreciate what you've done in the past. I mean, those things were still great, but, like, I mean, be great at what you're doing now. I mean, be great at being, whatever you're doing, for to earn your living. Be great at being, a husband, a father, a friend, whatever, because if you're constantly living in the past, looking backwards at what you did previously, I guarantee you, you're probably not living up to your potential in the moment today. It's not, it's just not possible. If you're incapable of finding happiness internally, you're never going to find it externally. So you've really got to find a way to internalize, like, who you were in the past, with your service, and say, like, this is me, this is part of me, but now I'm this, and I'm this, and I'm this, and I'm all of these things, and not, really become negative because of, what you did in the past, or what you how you perceive your current situation. And that's not to say you shouldn't strive to improve your current situation. The grass is always greener mentality pushes you forward to do some things, but you should also appreciate where you're at and be the best you can be where you're at. And if you have opportunity for improvement, obviously you should take it. But um, you know, having a negative attitude about your current position just because you want to get somewhere else is not productive or healthy.
This just made me think of this. There's a great Anne Lamott quote. I love her book, Bird by Bird, phenomenal book, great read. But she states in there, and this just made me think of it, and I absolutely love this statement that she makes, is that you can only see as far as your headlights will let you, but you can drive across the country that way. And I think far too often we lose sight of that. You can drive across the country in the middle of the night and only being able to see 20, 30 feet in front of you. And I think the big problem is just to this right here. And this is what I felt with what you were saying, whether looking in the past or what's behind you, that's not going to help you get to where you want to go cross country in this
Right.
hypothetical scenario. But also by thinking about what's 2 states away and not being present to what's in front of your headlights, that's when you get in a car wreck. I mean, you have to be present.
Right.
You have to be in the moment right now. So it's not to say we're not heading in the direction that you want to go to.
Right.
It's about really, truly being present to this moment.
Absolutely.
Because to your point, if you get out of whack with that, if you start thinking about anything else than right now, it's too easy. It's too easy to compare what was going on over there, and then what you're not doing is focus on the here and now, and how to show up and be great today. And that was, a couple of weeks ago, there was a podcast where we went through and talked about finding excellence with Jose, about being excellent in life and committing to something like that. And in the past, you've also referenced, really what that negative mindset does to people. What's thoughts? What suggestions do you have to get out of that? A lot of people do, whether they're looking in the past or looking at what other jobs are out there. What thoughts? What suggestions do you have to anybody to get on the other side of that possible negative mindset? Like grass is always greener, while still being present to where they are.
Yeah, it's tough. Sometimes you get locked into a mindset that it's tough to get out of. I mean, we're creatures of habit, and if you're in that mode of constantly, um, finding the negative in a situation, it can be tough to break, But and to your point, like the analogy of traveling across country, yeah, you know where you've been, excuse me, know where you're going, but be present in where you're at currently. And I think the easiest way to create happiness in the present is to find things to be grateful for. Small things, that, I mean, just start small, and build on that. Find a couple things every day to appreciate and be grateful for in your life, and you write them down, start a journal, and just say, hey, these 3 things, I'm grateful that happened today. May be grateful for a relationship, grateful for this opportunity, grateful for this sandwich. Like, it doesn't matter. I mean, it can start small and build on that, because uh, finding happiness in I think in the moment and in yourself. I think it starts with being grateful, and you can build on that, and that lays a good foundation to go from there.
I love that. So being grateful for everything in the moment. And what I love with that too is it keeps you present. When you're focused on the present and what
Right,
you're grateful for now, you have to be present. You have to be where your feet are,
right,
and you can't be anywhere else because you're here, you're now. And I love this simple act of just writing it down, even keeping a journal, like you mentioned. That would be a phenomenal practice for anybody. Thank you, Cody, so much for stepping in, for sharing this story about the grass being always greener, and then just for everybody out there listening, step in, start to jot down some thoughts, start to jot down some gratitudes. Where are you grateful in your life? What do you have to be grateful for right now? Not to say you're not moving to something else, not to say you're not heading in a different direction, but be present to where you are so you can find happiness where you are and then move to where you want to go. Till next time.
absolutely.